Hey guys, it's me, it's Ethan, and I'm here to talk to you today about not just any classical composer, but the classical composer, a name you should all know in music. His name is Ludwig van Beethoven. And he was born on his birthday on December 16th, 1770, in Bonn, Germany. His mother was named Maria Magdalena, and his father was named Johann von Beethoven. And both his mother and father were very musical people. And he had two brothers named Caspar and Nicholas. When Beethoven was 5, his father taught him how to play violin and harpsichord because the harpsichord was basically the piano before the piano was invented. It plucked the strings inside the piano instead of hammered them like a piano did. But his father would often beat him when he made mistakes. And since he was 5 years old, learning an instrument for the first time, yeah, that was quite a bit. Like, quite a bit. His father would also lock him in the basement quite a bit. And when he was 7, he learned to play the piano. And he had a piano teacher that was an insomniac. And he would often make him take lessons at odd hours of the night. And Beethoven often improvised, and something that his teacher and his father did not like. But the improvising paid off because he's probably the most well-known composer ever. And in March of 1778, he performed live by himself for the first time at a bar, because back in those days, especially in Europe, little kids used to go in bars and drink all the time with their parents. It was normal because the water wasn't very clean. So you kind of had to drink beer. And it's also, I need to mention at the time, Mozart was a big inspiration to Beethoven, which is why a lot of his early music sounds like Mozart. And when Beethoven was 10 years old, he was taught by a man named Christian Neffe. And Neffe taught him about Bach and also how to play organ. And when Beethoven was 12, him and Neffe were publishing music together. And that's when he started writing. And in 1784, he got a job as an organist. And at age 14, Beethoven began writing music full-time, although he kind of just pretended like he was Mozart. And at that time, he played violin, viola, piano, organ, and harpsichord. Whew, yeah, that's quite a bit of instruments, and yeah, he'll play more in the future. And in late March, early April of 1787, where he would have been about 16, he got to perform in Vienna, Austria, and he got to meet his hero, Mozart. However, in May 1787, his mother got tuberculosis and died, leaving him alone with his alcoholic father. In the summer of 1787, he became a music teacher for the Breuning family. And yeah, he liked that job. And in 1788, he went to go to the University of Bonn in Germany, which is a university that is still around today. And it was also during the time while he was in college, the French Revolution was going on. And yeah, that was a very big deal across Europe because not only did it include the French people socking it to their monarchy and, executing the king and queen of France, but it also saw France go to war with almost all of Europe. And yeah, that was a very big deal. And it was at that time that Beethoven thought that, well, the world is changing, so why not music change too? And in 1790, Beethoven started writing cantatas. In November of 1792, after graduating college, he moved to Vienna and stayed there for the rest of his life. And in 1793, he got to be taught by Haydn, and he got to do a duet with Franz Joseph Haydn, one of the greatest composers of the classical era. And he wrote a piano concerto at that time, two actually, in 1794 and 1795. It was piano concerto in B flat major and piano concerto in C major. And in 1795, he got to write his violin sonata. And in 1796, he was able to perform in front of the King of Prussia. Not Russia, not yet, but Prussia. And because back then, Prussia was a country that no longer exists. Prussia is a country that no longer exists. And fun fact, much of our military strategies actually comes from a Prussian military officer named Franz von Steuben. And he came to America during the American Revolution and really taught the American army some discipline. And we will listen to his two concertos and his violin sonata right now. This is Beethoven's Piano Concerto in C major. Hold on, let me just play it back. And that was some of Beethoven's Piano Concerto in C major. And I'm about to play you his Piano Concerto in B flat major. I saw Beethoven live one time. Yeah, it was pretty cool how he's still going after all these years. Pretty cool. Applause. Applause. Hold on. And that was some of Beethoven's Piano Concerto in B flat major. And that was played by the Mannheim Philharmoniker. And I'm going to play you his Violin Sonata. Pretty good. It's pretty cool. And that was Beethoven's Violin Sonata in D major. And in 1800, just in time for a new century, Beethoven released his first symphony. Ooh, and I'll play that for you right now. Some of Beethoven's first symphony. Oh, I gotta go back. Yep, that was some of his first symphony, but it was shortly afterwards that Beethoven moved out into the countryside, partially because he was going deaf. Yeah. He was going deaf in that time, and the exact cause of his deafness is very often debated, but what it could be is the fact that Beethoven was a big workaholic. In fact, he would often cover himself with cold water just so he could stay awake all night. And some of the cold water probably got into his ears and caused an infection, and that caused him to to go deaf. That could be what it is. And what's sad is a modern day surgery could have helped him, but no such luck. And in 1801 and 1802, he was just very, very depressed because, well, he was going deaf and he was a musician. And it was during that time he wrote some sad music like what I'm about to play you. It's called Moonlight Sonata, another piece I guarantee you've heard before. Yes, that was some of his sad music. And in 1802, he released his second symphony, and I'm about to play that for you right now. This is his second symphony. It was written in 1802, but it was premiered in 1803, and by that time, he was completely deaf. And this is his second symphony, conducted by Gustavo Dudamel. And that was some of his second symphony. And in 1803, he wrote the music for a ballet called The Creatures of Prometheus, which I'm about to play that for you right now. This is The Creatures of Prometheus by Beethoven. Yes. And even though he was deaf, he still wrote music. Lots of music. But the way he wrote music, even though he was deaf, is because he kind of already knew how chords worked and how instruments sounded. And he would write his symphonies at piano, and he would like feel the vibrations from the piano. It was all about vibrations. He always felt the vibrations of the music, and that's how he knew what he was writing. And in 1804, he wrote the Heroica Symphony, dedicated to Napoleon Bonaparte, because Napoleon Bonaparte was like the Mac Daddy of Europe back then. And he quite loved Napoleon. But once he heard that Napoleon crowned himself emperor, well, he didn't hear it. He read it in the paper because, well, he couldn't hear anything. But he read it in the paper that Napoleon had crowned himself Emperor of France, even though the whole point of the French Revolution was to get rid of a king, not get a new one. And yeah, he was pretty upset by hearing that. But, come on, the symphony was supposed to be for Napoleon. And I have this record, his third symphony, the Heroica Symphony, and I've seen this one performed live. So this is Beethoven's Symphony Number 3 in E flat major, Heroica, secretly dedicated to Napoleon. Okay. We do need to move on. Although I love that symphony, it's just we need to move on. But while we're on the subject now, it's worth noting that Beethoven, he had a very furious temper, and he was not a very patient man. Like, he could throw stuff, he could yell at people, he could cuss people out. He was also a very erratic person. He was kind of crazy. But he performed the Heroica Symphony for the first time in 1805. And in 1805 and 1806, he went on his symphony tour. And in 1807, he released his fourth symphony. And I'll play that for you right now. Oh, and this is actually played by the University of Bonn, but this is his fourth symphony in 2024, played by the University of Bonn. And that was some of his Fourth Symphony. And in 1808, he released his Fifth Symphony, which I guarantee you have heard this piece before. Guarantee it. See, I guarantee you have heard that somewhere. It's like the most famous classical piece of music of all time. And the piece I played at the beginning of this episode, it was called Faux Elise, and it was about a girl that he liked, but she more than likely rejected him because, well, he died a single man. Sad but true. And in 1811, his Sixth Symphony came out, which that one is my favorite. Yeah, that one's definitely my favorite. Yeah, this one's my favorite. His Sixth Symphony. And that was his Sixth Symphony, a very beautiful symphony. Yeah, I always liked that one. And his Seventh Symphony came out in 1813. And I'm playing that for you right now. His Seventh Symphony. In A major, okay. Yes, that was his Seventh Symphony performed and performed in 1813. And in 1814, right after that, he did his Eighth Symphony. And also, he had some personal issues going on in 1814 and 1815. First off, he fell in love with a married woman named Antonia, and they did love each other once, but since she was married, it just didn't work out. Sorry, Ludwig. And also, in 1814, his hero, Napoleon, was defeated in battle. This is his Eighth Symphony, Beethoven's Eighth Symphony, written in 1814. All right, and that was some of his Eighth Symphony. And in 1814, he read that Napoleon What you see, Napoleon in 1812, he went to war in Russia and he invaded Russia and was able to burn Moscow to the ground. But he had to do a wintry retreat, which was a complete disaster. He led an army of 500,000 guys into Russia, and only 100,000 came back in late 1812. And in 1813, he fought one last battle in France, but lost. And in 1814, he abdicated, which is why in 1815, Beethoven performed in front of Tsar Alexander III of Russia, one of the people that had defeated him. It was Tsar Alexander III and General Wellington, as well as Admiral Nelson. Those were the three big guys that were able to defeat Napoleon. And in November 15th of 1815, Beethoven's brother Caspar died, which is why Beethoven sued for custody of Caspar's son Karl. And in 1816, Beethoven officially adopted Karl and became a dad. And that year, he took a break from music to focus on being the ultimate dad. But in 1818, he started getting old and sick, which is why Karl went back to go live with his mother, but he was eventually taken back to Beethoven. And for the next couple years, Beethoven, he knew that he was getting old and he was probably going to die soon. So he got really into spirituality. And in 1821, Napoleon died. And when Beethoven was asked if he wanted to write something in tribute to Napoleon, Beethoven simply said, "I already did." And in 1822, Beethoven started working on his big final symphony and his big final tour. And fun fact, his Ninth Symphony was funded by the London Philharmonic, and he performed it in Vienna, in Germany, and also in Russia in 1823, and he also performed it in 1824, too. And, guys, his Ninth Symphony is something that I guarantee you have all heard. I guarantee you have heard this music, which is why I'll play it for you briefly, because I guarantee you've heard this before. See, I guarantee you have heard that somewhere. And that right there is, or was, Ode to Joy, Beethoven's last song, and I think it's probably his greatest. And in 1824, Beethoven really went out with a bang. Because after that, he knew he didn't have much time left and he wanted to spend some time with his son. And that's what he did. He spent the last 3 years of, or 2.5 years of his life with his son. And it was after visiting some family with his son in early 1827 that Beethoven got really sick. Yeah, the poor guy, he got really sick in January of 1827, and he had pneumonia. And since he was about 56 at the time, so he was old, and it was hard for his body to fight off these diseases, especially with the poor sanitation of the 1800s, and without modern day medicine. He soon later died. He died on March 26th, 1827. And I think he went out with a bang because, according to the people that were there was this one big lightning flash, and Beethoven raised his arm and dropped it. And apparently that's how he went out. And Beethoven, he is a name that just, you all should know that name, because he was the guy that ushered in the Romantic era of music. The era of music that was all about emotion. And he means a lot for young musicians because he's many young musicians' first introduction to classical music. And his music is played everywhere. Like Ode to Joy, what I just played you, that is played in many, many commercials. Again, I guarantee you've heard that somewhere in your life. The Fifth Symphony, one of the most famous classical pieces ever. And Moonlight Sonata, that song that was played in the video game Resident Evil. Yeah. Yeah, so I guarantee you have heard his music somewhere. And if you didn't, well, congratulations. You just now have. But anyway, I just want to thank you guys for watching, or listening, and I'll see you next time.